All right, welcome to another episode of Start Smart Real Estate Reimagined. Today, we're talking about email marketing and how we can use emails to build trust, stay top of mind, and also convert our database into upcoming listings. And I don't think it has to be too complicated. So I want to sort of take out the complication of it all and give you some ideas on, what you can do as part of your email campaign strategy. Um, Firstly, I guess I'll share my personal story. So when I started out in real estate back in 2012, email really, I didn't even think about it and I didn't do it. And it wasn't until I sort of restarted my career up here on the Sunshine Coast that I started to do email. And, at the first it was very basic. I kind of didn't know what to write about generally. But I did it, and that was probably the most important thing. And I just put in some words and share some of my current listings, and I would send that out on an ad hoc kind of basis. And it was through just self-learning and some of my coaches that I got mentoring from that I learnt the value of consistency and doing an email campaign consistently at the same time every week. And you can pick your time when you do that. But at the start, I wasn't doing that, right? I was doing it, sending one on a Monday and then sending one on a Thursday the following week, and then I might miss a couple of weeks and then send another email out. But there is truth to being consistent with your process because people then start to expect it. And certainly now I've been doing my email campaigns consistently on a Thursday, pretty much at 5 o'clock every Thursday. People get used to my emails and some people that like to read it are waiting for that email to come through. So yeah, consistency is key with emails, and I don't think you have to overdo emails. And I've got a few different strategies I do now with my email campaigns that I'm just testing. But one thing that remains is a weekly email out to my database, and I think that's something that every real estate business should have in place. Is a really comprehensive email campaign that goes out once a week at the set time. Um, and the reason why I think this is so important, well, there's a couple of reasons, but the first one is that, they say that 3 to 7% of your marketplace at any one time is potentially selling a property. And so that means that 3 to 7% of your database might be potentially selling at any one time as well. Now, if you've put in the hard work to create conversations with these people and obviously got permission to have their email address so you can email them weekly, they probably want to hear from you, right? And it's a really good opportunity to connect with your audience without having to call them every second week. You can email them every week, and when it comes property time for them, whether they're buying, selling, or whatever they might be doing, you will be top of mind as the agent to go to when that time comes. Not always, but certainly more than the person that doesn't do that sort of email campaign strategy. And the other advantage is to email is that it has higher cut through as well, higher open rates. And there's ways that you can test this as well, depending on the platforms you're using to send the emails out. But compared to some of the other, forms of communication, well, obviously phone calls, it's harder to call a database of 10,000 every week, whereas you can actually, you can email them every week as well. I'm just going to put this on mute. Give me 1 second. I've got some feedback coming through here. So yes, you can obviously email, everyone in your database every week, whereas you can't call. Then you look at things like social media. There's so much noise in that space now, it's hard to get any cut through. And the other thing with email is it feels a bit more personal too, because you're actually emailing your potential clients directly and addressing them as well. So it feels like you're actually communicating with them, not with just the whole audience, like social media might feel like as well. So let's look at structures of emails. And again, I don't think we need to overcomplicate it. And probably the biggest thing I think that I talk about often in real estate marketing is making sure that you're aligned how you're communicating with your personal brand, because we know real estate is all about your personal brand, right? That's who people are connecting with. That's who people build relationships with, and that's who generally helps them sell a home, not the brand. It's really about the person. So I think in all your marketing, including your email strategy, you really want to make sure you bring across your personality and your character into that email campaign. And And I don't think it's about pretending to be someone you're not. I think it's about really aligning, your passions, what you're most curious about in real estate, with how you communicate, because people will connect with that. And that's really what you want. You want that deeper connection that resonates with some people. Now, you're not going to resonate with all people. Some people might take some of the stuff you talk about. I don't know, they might disagree or they might not like your communication style, and that's okay. Because again, your marketing strategy is about connecting with your ideal clients. And they're usually people that can resonate with you, not on every facet of your personality and your style, but, on a handful of 5 things that you're all about, they might connect with 1, 2, 3, 4 of those potentially, maybe 5 if you're lucky. But that's the person that you want to talk to. And that's why it's so important to align your email communication with your personality. And you probably heard me talk about that before if you've listened to some of my content, but you are the brand, and you want to make sure that how you're communicating is consistent with how you actually show up, because nothing's worse than, you putting out all this communication and then you show up to them and they see a totally different person. That's going to be quite off-putting. So they want to see the person that's actually there, if that makes sense. So with the structure of your email, again, mine has evolved over the time, and now my emails are fairly in-depth, with a lot of value add, I would call it. But the first one is just a simple introduction for your email for the day, because someone gets an email through and it might say, "Hey, Leigh," and then, okay, well, what is this about? So again, just telling them, "Hey, I'm just this week excited about a few new property listings that we've got, and I also was interested about this article I read from the RBA about potential rate cuts moving forward." So you can share just a little bit of a personal intro about what they can expect from your email this week, so they keep on reading. The next one is your heading or your subject header. I think it's really important to make sure that your subject header is capturing their attention. And there's plenty of tools online that you can use to figure out what headings would actually work, because ultimately you want someone to get your email and then click on it, to then start reading it. And then that intro is just going to flow from that. They'll click on it, they'll start reading it, and then you'll have their engagement. And the better you can start that intro, the better they're going to, continue on reading. And that's what you really want. You want them to read the information that you're providing, because that will help build more trust longer term. So after your quick intro, you can add, and I'll go through a number of different things you can put into your email, but value add, what are you giving them? Why are they going to read your email? And what's the benefit to them? Because you just talking about yourself is not really any value add. You want to give them some insights and property tips and behind the scenes. You can talk obviously about your current listings and your current sales and things like that as well. But what can you actually give to them that's actually going to make them walk away from your email going, "Geez, that was beneficial, and that'll help me when I, next decide to sell a property," or something like that. And then always within each of your emails, I think it's important to put in some form of call to action. And again, I don't necessarily push these things, but always in my emails, there is links in there somewhere that they can click on to get a free market appraisal, to read a blog article that I might have. Because again, that's all just helping with that engagement. And the simpler you can make it for people to do business with you, the better it is. So you might have an intro, you might talk about some of your property listings, you might give some tips about what's happening, with staging or styling at the moment. And then you might have a little button there that's, free market appraisal, click here. And that's just a link they can go to. They can type in their name and book a market appraisal with you immediately. Other things you can talk about when you maybe don't know what to write about, and I'm going to talk about AI very soon as well, but there's so many things you can talk about. And in real estate, every day is a different day, and we're always dealing with, different buyers, different markets, different properties. So it's not really too hard to think of, you wouldn't think it'd be too hard to think about what we could talk about. But I remember times where I was just like, "Oh, what can I write about this week? What can I give of value? What's going to be interesting to someone to pick up their email and read?" So here's a few ideas that you can talk about: market updates, behind the scenes, property previews, obviously just solds as well. You might share some client stories, so some case studies or even client testimonials. You might talk about things that are happening in your community if you're sort of area focused, and you might talk about some, new shop that's opened up or some event that's happening this weekend. So there's plenty of things you can talk about in there. You can also do some networking stuff in there as well, like share I did a segment for a while, the Business of the Week, and that was just local businesses that I help promote in my emails. So again, it helps you build that trust by having that community insight and community connection. So there's a few ideas that I think are really beneficial to share along the way. And I want to talk about AI, but before I do that, I just sort of talk about the platform that you use to do your emails. For a long time, I just used our CRM, which was AgentBox, but I found it very limited to how you could actually set up a stylish email. So I went out and found another provider, and this was heaps better. It was so easy to use. I could set up a really nice, pretty email template. I could add videos in there. I could add images in there. I could add properties in there. You name it, you can pretty much do anything. But the best thing about these platforms is that when you send the email, you actually get a report that comes back to show you what your engagement was like, what was the open rate like. And that's really good information to help you fine tune your next one, because you might find that, hey, I send this email and I got heaps of people clicking on and reading it. But then the next email you send, hardly anyone did. So you might just have a look at the heading and go, okay, maybe I just need to tweak the heading a little bit. Or maybe it was something in the copy that just wasn't really connecting with them. Maybe I didn't share too much of a story or value that was resonating with the audience there as well. And beyond that, with some of these platforms, or most of them nowadays, is that you can go in depth more to who clicked on the email, who opened it, and what did they read? What did they click on within your email? So you might see that a lot of people clicked on one of the articles you wrote. So that might give you an idea to then use that article to promote on social media. Because obviously if a lot of people are clicking it, it must have had some level of value in there for them. So really important to, get a good email provider that can help you do those email campaigns, because some of the ones out there, they're okay and they're still communicating. And I think that's a great place to start. But for $100 a month, you can get a platform that is much more insightful with the statistics of your email campaigns that will help you get better at doing your emails longer term as well. Let's talk about AI. So ChatGPT, this is what I'm going to talk about today. ChatGPT for me has really taken over my life personally and professionally. I use it for every day prolifically. It is a great tool. Now, I sort of consider ChatGPT as my ultimate marketing assistant. It's like having someone beside me that I can brainstorm ideas with. And that's where AI can really help you with your email campaigns and even your email strategy. So it's amazing what it can do. And I won't go too in depth here, but in the outro, when we jump off the recording, I will chat with those guys on lines about, ChatGPT and what you can do there. But definitely marketing assistant. I think one thing to keep in mind is that what you put in is what you're going to get out of it. So if you just ask ChatGPT to create something for you, it's actually not putting in your human intelligence. It's just letting AI create its own thing. And again, that's not going to go well when you're emailing that out, because it's not going to necessarily connect with your personal brand. So I always think you have to have human intelligent input, which is you, using then AI, and then always checking over it before you put it out there as well, making sure it sounds right and, sounds a bit like you. So I think that's the first thing to learn about ChatGPT and any of the AI profiles really out there at the moment. ChatGPT is really a tool to help you just create more efficiencies in your business, right? So if you're writing an email campaign, you can actually, what I do is just speak into ChatGPT and I say, hey, want to write an email this week to my database. What really caught my attention this week was the NAB's talk about interest rate cuts for the rest of the year. They're talking about 5 interest rate cuts. So that's pretty interesting. I actually wrote a blog about it, which will be in the links below in this email. I also am excited. We've just been out to some properties, navigating the weather, and we've taken some photos of these properties. So we're really excited about bringing these properties to the market soon. And then I just say, chat, can you write email copy for this? And then it'll write the email copy. I read over it. I plug it into my email system and, fine tune it as best I can. And then there you have it. You've got your email copy done for you. But you can use ChatGPT for everything that you're creating in your content. So if it's a community event or if it's a market update blog article, you can use ChatGPT to write that. And then you can include those links in your weekly email as well. Because again, it's about adding value. Now, you might include in there a blog article that might relate to someone. You might put in there a listing that might, relate to someone. So everyone's different to what they want, but having that level of content in there will just cater to your audience a bit better. And that's where I think ChatGPT and AI really plays a massive role. So turning emails into listings. Look, it's like making cold calls. We talked about cold call scripts last week. You can call 100 people a day and get no appraisals booked, because at any one time, not everyone's looking to sell. But what it's really about is about creating relationships, and that's where your email can really build the trust, keep you top of mind. So when that they are in property mode, hopefully they think of you to come out for the next appraisal. And it does absolutely convert to appraisals. Now, I do an email campaign to quite a significant database, and I don't book appraisals through it every week. But often enough, we do book appraisals through it. And I'm going out to one today, actually. And this was a story of a buyer couple. They were looking at properties a few years back now. They must have seen or attended a couple of my open homes. They since bought in an area outside my area. And but they got my email every week. And so for the last 3 years, they've been getting my emails. And when they called me up, they said, "Oh, we'd like you to come out and help us with the sale. We get your emails, and we always like reading your content." So it was really good feedback, but it just shows that your email campaign is just a way to nurture those relationships that you created. Even though it wasn't a big connection or relationship at the start, because they were getting my weekly emails, it's turned into something, hopefully, that will be a listing at the end of today. So that's pretty much it from me today. For those of you listening online or on the podcast, all my replays are always put up on YouTube. We have a Q&A session at the end of each of these sessions for those that are live online with us today. And in summary, look, email still works, and I think it's absolutely pivotal or critical that you put an email strategy together and start doing that consistently, at least on a weekly basis. So that's it from me, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Start Smart Real Estate Reimagined. We'll talk soon.